So tonight's storyteller is one of our first-time storytellers on our stage, and we're really excited to have her. After a lifetime of doing chores for her grandmother, Anisha was blind to a secret the rest of the family knew. Please welcome Anisha Sampat with her story, Dude, Grandma.
Okay, so I, like many, especially in the Silicon Valley and Bay Area, grew up in an immigrant household. My parents had an arranged marriage. My mom followed my dad back to America in search for a better life and more opportunities for their future family. With that in mind, when they got here, they had to start balancing the social norms and traditions of their homeland versus what was their new homeland. And so in my native language, you call your paternal grandparents your dada and your dadi, and your maternal grandparents your nana and your nani. So the story kind of starts with, unfortunately, my nana and dada actually passed away when I was very young. But on the flip side, my dadi has lived with me for about 99.2% of my life under the same exact roof. You can only imagine what that's like. So one of my earliest memories of her was us actually moving into the house we now live in. We went from a one-story house to a two-story house where she lived on the bottom floor and we lived upstairs. Very different dynamic than what we were used to. Nevertheless, she was a woman of routine. When I went to kindergarten, we went through the same exact thing every day. I went to school, I came back, I changed my clothes, I ate a snack, I watched TV. Very simple. Oh, and before I go, just so you know, I couldn't have the snack until I changed my clothes. Why changing from one pair of sweatpants to another made a difference, I still don't know to this day. But it worked for us and we kind of moved on. But as time passed and as I got a little bit older, you know, the snack time turned into, oh, Anisha, after you're done eating, can you help me get this? You know, can you get it off the shelf? Can you get it from the fridge? Can you get it from the cabinet? Can you get it from my room? And, you know, I didn't really think anything of it. In the culture I grew up in, you know, you gave your dadi respect. That's just what you did. If an elderly person asked you to do something, you did it. It was that simple. It didn't matter what it was. You just wanted to help. And in my case, especially when it came to things of height, my dadi was about, 4'10" and like 215 pounds. She was the definition of short and stout. So like I really didn't mind helping her. Even at the age of 5 when, you know, I wasn't that tall because I didn't really get a growth spurt until I was like, I don't know, maybe 16. I still was pretty much taller than her. And I sure was a lot more agile at, you know, like 60 pounds. So you can just imagine the weight differential. So, you know, I did the chores, kind of went on with life. As I got a little bit older, it turned into, Anisha, I need help cooking dinner. You know, jume jo bane jaye. And I'm like, oh, okay, sure, I'll do it. It sounds like an interesting learning experience. But, you know, I started noticing that even all my days off turned into, oh, Anisha, we have to clean my closet. Oh, Anisha, we need to work on jejejo work, which is like a little mini temple in our house. I said, oh, okay. You know, this turned into days, turned into weekly, it turned into regular, it turned into every single day. And I'm like, dude, I just want to be a kid. Like, I just want to go back to watching TV. And in this case, you know, I go back to, if I really wanted to, I could just run upstairs and you couldn't get me because you can't go up the stairs. But then I realized, it may not work so well. But as we got older, you know, kind of moved on, I ended up getting into a lot more extracurriculars, so magically my time at home got less and less and less. So I kind of did less and less and less, although it really just turned into when my dadi was watching her soap operas, oh, Anisha, you came home? Great, can you do these 10 things before you do your homework? And I'm like, I thought education comes first in our culture. Am I missing something here? Anyway, so I go to high school and, you know, the best thing about going to high school is you're that much closer to turning 16. Turning 16 means I get my license. Getting my license means I get freedom. But in my house, it also meant, oh, you can take Dadi to all her doctor's appointments and all her other appointments that Nishi needs to go to. And I said, you know what? If that's what allows me to get my license, I'll do it. And so all the doctors, everyone started knowing me as, oh, that's Manjula's granddaughter. I'm like, yeah, that's me. And I said, oh, I'll just take the cell phone. This is a great gig for me. So I go to college, and this is probably the longest time I've been out of the house. Just remember, 99.2% of my life, I've lived under the same roof as her. But even though going to college was freedom, I really just went a whole 20 miles away and 10 miles from my dad's office. So I still saw her every weekend. And so I still did all those chores every single weekend, while my friends were all partying and going on trips and doing all these things that I did not get to do. And so while I was in college, I also studied abroad. And so that was actually the longest time I've ever been away from her. I spent this time in London embracing the sights, taking in all that there was to be a local, because let's be honest, I'm never gonna get 4.5 months again to do pretty minimal schoolwork, let's be honest, if you've ever studied abroad, and a lot of sightseeing. And so while I was there, I was taking it all in. Yeah, I would Skype them. It was great. She'd remind me every week, oh, Anisha, are you eating enough? Anisha, do you do this? Anisha, do you do that? I said, yes, Dadi, yes, I'm taking care of myself, I promise. I don't need to just be in your care to be taken care of. And so, but then she falls ill. And I am now just about halfway across the world, and there's nothing I can do about it. I have gone through every day in a culture where you respect your elders, you do everything you can for your elders, and I'm at a point where I can do nothing. I find myself in this place one more time, but before then, I'll rewind a little bit, is I also had a relationship such that my grandmother and I could talk about boyfriends. We could talk about dating. We could talk about trying new things, and you can take that to what you think it is. And, you know, she would actually create scenarios in which we would end up just the two of us, because she didn't want anyone else to hear these conversations. And she would corner me and say, Anisha, I need to know who you're dating right now. Anisha, I need to know what is going on in your life. I want to know all the things you don't tell your mom and dad. And you can imagine, this is my grandmother and I, let's see, she's 85, I'm 27, do the math a little bit. That type of age gap. And that's what we would talk about. Except on the flip side, if you saw her, she wore saris, went to the mandir, the temple otherwise, and was very holy. That's what she believed in. She believed in God, she believed in giving her prayers, doing all those things. But then, you know, obviously her and I had a little bit different of a relationship. And so going back, I found myself in that place one more time. And that was approximately 10 months ago when she went through a stint of being in and out of the hospital for about 3 months. I've never felt so helpless in my life, especially for someone who I have strived to be that perfect grandchild and that perfect something just so I could be her favorite, because I wasn't the eldest and I wasn't the only boy. So I had a lot to work for in my family, and I sure didn't understand why, of all the people who had to do all the chores, why it was me. I'm the youngest after all, and I'm also a third of your size, let's be honest. And so kind of taking it in from there, taking it from there, it really reminded me. I really got to think about what is our relationship. On one hand, she's my best friend. On the other hand, she is the person who puts me to the most work, if in fact more work than I think I get paid for at my daily job. And yet, I'm sitting here helpless where I can't do anything for her. My grandmother actually ended up passing away last July. And I sat there thinking about what to talk about at her eulogy. Because because to be honest, it wasn't because I thought I was the right person, but it was because I knew my My cousin was not going to do it, and I knew my sister had too much stage fright, so it felt like it had to fall on me, just like everything else in my life. And so while I was sitting there thinking about my eulogy, I finally realized the thing that my sister and everyone apparently, aside from me, knew, which was, today I get to admit I was her favorite. I was the one who she wanted to spend all her time with. And with that, I get to live peacefully today. Thank you.